Welcome to the Rage and Blaze Wrestling Review Podcast. We're going to start off with Wrestlemania 1, the granddaddy of them all, the one that started this whole wrestling phenomenon. Okay, so in this podcast, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing the 4 major pay-per-views. So you got WrestleMania, followed by Survivor Series, and then, of course, Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. My name is Rage.
And I am Blaze.
So we grew up watching wrestling in the heyday, back when Hulk Hogan was an American hero, the Ultimate Warrior was the only one that could stand up to him. Then we obviously loved it in the big boom of wrestling when you had DX, NWO, The Rock. I mean, those were the heydays that we absolutely grew up loving this sports entertainment, I suppose you can call it. And that is kind of our background on why we love this so much.
Yeah. What was your favorite wrestler when you were watching it back in the day?
Oh, obviously the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, mine was always Triple H, because I was really a big fan of DX.
So obviously there's some DX ties and some love there. Obviously, it wasn't just the comedy I liked about Shawn Michaels. It was his wrestling ability. Every match you watched, hell, he made Ric Flair look like an amazing wrestler. And he made The Undertaker. I mean, everybody loves The Undertaker. Everybody loves that persona. I do. He's never really been one of my favorites because he's the type of guy, almost like Stone Cold Steve Austin for me, where if you've watched one of his matches, you know what he's going to do, and in my opinion, you've seen that match a million times. Punch, stunner,
Very controversial there.
No, I don't care how controversial it is, it's the truth. Guys like Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, their matches looked very similar, okay? Every match looked about the same, but then you had guys like the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Bret the Hitman Hart. You had these guys that come in and just pull out Kurt Angle. They pull out these matches, and every match felt like a new match and a treat because they just pull out all the stops. And that's just my opinion of wrestling. Those are the type of wrestlers I like more. Not that I don't enjoy those other, Stone Cold Stunners. I enjoyed them, but you know where I'm going with this.
Well, this podcast will be the perfect example to see if Rage eats his words on these, because I'm sure you probably haven't seen those matches in forever.
Yeah, well, you know what? Fuck you, Blaze.
Fuck you too, Rage.
Alright, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and get this started with WrestleMania 1, started back March 31st, 1985. So we're talking 35 years ago this played. So we're going to watch it. And
you were 1.
I was 1. Well, I wasn't even 1 yet. My birthday hadn't happened yet, so I wasn't even 1.
Fair enough.
So we're going to go ahead and watch this and give our opinions on a 30-year-old wrestling pay-per-view. So let's get started. So this thing starts out very 80s. You have pictures of all the wrestlers that are going to perform that night. Very 80s themed background music going on. And you can definitely tell it's very, very dated. Our shows obviously start out with a little bit more pizzazz nowadays.
You can definitely tell it's a lot older. The font is very 80s, very outdated. Also, what I noticed, we started out a little bit. We got to see Mean Gene Okerlund sing the national anthem, and well,
it's a far cry from like John Legend doing the national anthem nowadays, or America the Beautiful, I think is pretty much what he's saying.
I would compare it closer to William Hung, actually.
Oh, it was very rough, but then they compared him to Robert Goulet.
Yeah, he was terrible. They were wrong.
And I'm thinking he sounded more like Robert Goulet while Will Ferrell played him on Saturday Night Live as opposed to the real Robert Goulet.
Absolutely. So you can definitely tell this was their first pay-per-view. You can definitely tell that this was still a young promotion. They really haven't gotten anywhere yet. It really kind of looks like one of those ones you go to at a high school, a local wrestling.
A little bit bigger than that. I mean, there's a crowd. It's Madison Square Garden, New York City, for crying out loud.
They interviewed a guy named the Masked Executioner, and I've seen more cleverness in a local promotion.
Yeah, and that's how the show starts out, is the national anthem, and then Mean Gene pre-recorded, because obviously he was just in the ring singing. So then you got a pre-recorded Mean Gene Okerlund. He is interviewing Tito Santana and the Executioner.
Now, Tito I've heard of, and I'm pretty sure he's a good wrestler. We'll see here in a sec how he does. Masked Executioner, I've never heard of. I've never heard of this guy, and he looks like they just took him off the streets.
Yeah.
It's a terrible mask.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously didn't make a big impact, because I've watched this WrestleMania and I didn't even remember him. So, I mean, I've went through and I've watched all these before, and he's obviously a name that most people would not remember.
And why is his mask red? Wouldn't you think of an executioner? You would think of a black mask.
Yeah, well, this is the 80s. Things were done differently.
No, executioners have been murdering people for many years, and they were black in the 1500s. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I think it's about time for the bell to ring. Okay, so this first match, Tito Santana versus the Executioner, it gets off with a pretty good start. There's a big crowd pop. I think the fans are really enjoying this. He throws the Executioner out of the ring like 3 times during this match. He does a high-flying elbow, and the match finishes off with a figure 4 lock submission. Executioner submits. But it was a pretty good start for this event. It kind of felt like a squash match. The Executioner didn't really get much off.
Oh, it was definitely a squash match. I don't know if I would call it a pretty good start. Tito Santana was interesting to watch. He was decent. The Executioner, he pretty much fit the description I already gave him. He looks like a local talent that doesn't really know what he's doing.
Right, it was such an embarrassing performance, he had to wear a mask.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I wish I was wearing a mask watching it.
Come on, it wasn't that bad. Tito Santana did keep the crowd energized. He threw a few high-flying moves. He even threw the Executioner. Yeah, he even threw the Executioner out of the ring, and the Executioner landed on one of the chairs, which I thought was pretty, he was cool for that time, for something like that to happen.
Like I said, Tito Santana shined, Executioner did not.
Obviously. You also have to kind of put yourself in the position that this is 1985, so wrestling is a lot different than when it is when the cruiserweights start kind of taking over and things get a little bit more heated and exciting in the ring in the 90s. So, I mean, you can't fault them for, the high-flying elbow was probably the most exciting move in the match, and obviously we know of a lot more high-flying, better moves that we can see today.
That's a fair point, but this is a review podcast, and I'm going to review it the way I see it.
Okay, fair enough, but, okay, let's move on. We're going to get Albert Hayes, who really looks like a fat kid that doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
I don't know how he got this job. Kept looking over to the corner like, is this okay, Daddy? Is this okay? Can I do this? Is this fine?
Yeah, he kind of looked like if he didn't do a good enough job, he wasn't going to get a treat afterwards. Maybe Daddy said he can take him out for ice cream.
Oh, Vince McMahon was staring at him from the other side.
Definitely. He's saying only winners get sprinkles.
That's right.
Okay, here we got the second match. We got Special Delivery Jones versus King Kong Bundy with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, accompanying him. And this match wasn't much of a match at all, was it?
No, it was super short. King Kong Bundy definitely sent him away. Special delivery.
Wah, wah, wah. So anyhow, pretty much all we get is special delivery going in for a hold. King Kong Bundy picks him up and bear hugs him, throws him into the turnbuckles, who they called the Avalanche.
The Avalanche, yep.
And then he falls to the ground, and King Kong Bundy does a big splash and pins him 1, 2, 3. They claim it was a record-breaking time, 9 seconds.
They said it was 9 seconds, but there's no way that match was 9 seconds.
If you go to Wikipedia page, it is billed as 25 seconds.
It takes 3 seconds to do the pin.
Yeah, obviously. So, I think they were a little jumping the gun with the 9 seconds there. It was about, I think it was more than 25 seconds, Wikipedia says.
Yeah, 25 maybe. There was 3 moves through the whole thing?
Yeah, there was a bear hug, the Avalanche, and then the big splash, and then 1, 2, 3. So this was a really quick match, over and done. Nobody's really ever heard of Special Delivery Jones.
I've never heard of him.
He's another guy that's kind of lost in history. But obviously, I think a lot of wrestling fans listening, you know who King Kong Bundy is. He was 6'4", 400 plus pounds. I mean, he was a massive mountain of a man.
Not to mention Jimmy Hart. That's a legend in the business.
Yeah, I believe he is in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yeah, getting to hear him, that was pretty good. And actually, you know what? When Special Delivery Jones had his interview, it seems like they interview all the wrestlers before the show or before their match. He was entertaining to hear.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. He could talk. But once again, he didn't last much long in the ring there.
Nope. No, it was a squash match. I said the last match was a squash match. That was a legit squash match.
Yeah, the last match lasted just a little hair under 5 minutes. So there was actually a match there. There was a few exciting moves, couple holds. This one was just flat out, let's let King Kong Bundy push his way around, and let's show the people how dominant this man is. And that's really all this match was meant for.
Pretty much.
Okay, so we're going to move on. The next match, we do have a legend coming up. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is about to take on Matt Bourne.
Now, when I was a kid, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was one of my favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, you kind of like them dragons, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's move on to the next match. Okay, so we just finished the third match on the card, and it was Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Matt Bourne, and this is the first match so far in this WrestleMania that it actually went a little back and forth. That Matt Bourne actually got a few moves in, he got a couple suplexes in, but it was a decent match. I actually kind of expected this to be a little bit more exciting, being that it had the legend Ricky the Dragon Steamboat in it, but I mean, it ended on a high note with a flying crossbody off the top rope. 1, 2, 3, he wins the match. But I guess I just expected a little bit more excitement, but it is what it is. The match lasted a little under 5 minutes, but it was the first match in the card that wasn't really a squash. There was actually some back and forth in this match. It wasn't all one-sided with the winner pretty much doing everything.
It was by far the best match of the night so far. Just watching Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, yes, I agree. I would have liked to see a little more, but it was still nice to see him. You could definitely tell there was we had a legend in the room instead of kind of more boring matches.
Right. And you can also tell as soon as they announced Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, you could definitely tell he was a crowd pleaser, a crowd favorite. There was
Fans
a huge
popped.
there was a huge pop for him. Also, something we'd like to point out at this point, so far, 3 matches in, there has not been any entrances, which anybody who has watched WrestleMania knows that the entrances sometimes are almost as legendary as some of the matches. I mean, remembering Shawn Michaels come from the top to take on Bret the Hitman Hart in the 60-minute Iron Man match. I mean, those type of entrances are legendary. I know a lot of people look forward to Triple H's entrances every year. He always does something different. John Cena, even though I'm not a huge John Cena fan, his entrances were always pretty exciting for WrestleMania. So it is kind of, seeing the little baby seed of WrestleMania 1 before it becomes the granddaddy of them all, what it is today, is very interesting to see, because all you get is a Mean Gene Okerlund interview before every match so far, and then you get a Howard Finkel introduction while you're already in the ring, almost like it's a boxing event.
Oh, it very much feels like a boxing event. Everybody's outfit so far has been essentially just one color, just like this one. Ricky the Dragon had white. Matt Bourne was red, I believe it was.
Yeah, that's how forgettable he is.
Right.
We can't even remember.
It might have been black.
It might have been red. Might have been black.
The most interesting look so far has been the Executioner. It looks like he made that at home with his mommy.
Yeah, it definitely looks like he could go to any Halloween store and pick up that generic mask, and it just hasn't been the flamboyant outfits that we know and love. Some of our wrestlers that wrestle today,
including Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I remember Ricky the Dragon. He had like this big cape that he would come down to.
Yeah, wings.
Yeah, he was always very, and that's probably why I took to him so much. Like, I like the guys that are more charismatic. Like, right. I like the big, those type of guys. So it was weird seeing him just wrestle with white and no entrance. The entrances is really taken aback, which makes me think that back then they just didn't do entrances. It just wasn't a thing on any show, let alone WrestleMania.
Right, and like I said, I mean, this was a different time. I think wrestling was viewed a little bit differently. I think these guys watching it treated it more like a real sport, and this isn't really sports entertainment yet.
This is back in the time when people believed wrestling was real.
Yeah, I'm sure this is around. We'd have to do a little bit more research to see when that cat kind of came out of the bag. But, I mean, Madison Square Garden, a big boxing venue. I mean, a lot of legendary boxing matches have happened. So, obviously, they're definitely treating this like
a boxing event.
Yeah, I'm sure there was probably some betting going on where I don't know if that really happens today in wrestling.
It probably does, to be honest with you. People are weird.
Yeah, I'm sure people would bet on anything. I think during this whole quarantine time, I think I saw betting on marble racing. So I saw a few YouTube videos of marble racing. So
that's right. I betted on the red marble, actually.
Did the red marble?
Absolutely.
I kind of went with the more colorful blue, kind of looked like a galaxy type of marble.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he's going to make it this year.
No, I mean, he's got a long way to go. I think he got injured in the last race. Came crashing.
Got a little bit of crack?
Yeah, I think he kind of crashed into a rock.
That's tough.
It shortened his season, but I think he'll come strong next season.
Red for the win. Woo-woo.
Okay, we're getting a little off topic, so let's move on. We've still got a lot of WrestleMania to go. So the next match we've got has another legend, Brutus, the Barber Beefcake, versus David Sammartino.
Man, it will be nice if at least one of these matches has two people that I know.
Yeah, well, so far you're not going to get that, but I'm sure we'll get that later in the program. But we'd also like to point out, you can follow along and watch this with us on the WWE Network app. every WrestleMania, from the beginning all the way to the 2-part WrestleMania they just recently did this year, the Quarantine Edition WrestleMania, which was very
interesting.
I mean, we'll get to that one, obviously, but I don't know, it was very different. So anyhow,
you should wash your hands.
Shit. Gotta wash your hands. So we're doing this in my living room, people. We're not in a studio. So just keep that in mind. My wife has to wash her hands.
That's right. All right, let's watch this next match.
Okay, so the next match we got Brutus Beefcake with Johnny Valiant and his opponent David Sammartino. I think I said Bruce earlier. Or Bruno. And
the legend
with Bruno Sammartino at his corner, which that is a father-son duo. Now, Bruno is a legend in the business. He held the WWF title for 11 straight years, a record that will obviously never be broken.
No, that was a different time back then. They didn't do as many shows. Yeah, that's not going to be broken anytime soon. So he's going to stay in the record books for that one.
So we noticed that Brutus was standing in the ring at the beginning of the match and was announced by Howard Finkel. But then David, with Bruno, got an entrance. And they came out to a huge pop, obviously. A lot of that probably has to do with his dad. So this match went back and forth. It was a back and forth match. But then it kind of got out of hand when Johnny Valiant got involved. And then Bruno got involved. And then it just became a big brawl. So they called this a double disqualification.
Which, let's be real, nowadays that would have been a disqualification for Brutus the Barber Beefcake because he attacked him first. He attacked
now, Bruno. I'm going to correct you right there. You called him Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Now, I'd like to point out that this is before he was the barber. He looks like he came out to kind of a playboy, like a male stripper type of look. And his manager was Luscious Johnny Valiant.
Well, he'll always be the barber in my heart.
Growing up, he was the Barber Beefcake for us. But I just wanted to point that out, that he does not have that persona as of yet in this WrestleMania.
Slip of the tongue, my bad.
So that match was the longest match so far, going on for almost 12 minutes long. And it was a decent match. It wasn't a bad match. It was a back and forth. It just wasn't as exciting, I'd say, as some that we've seen. Now, the next match, the 5th match in WrestleMania, was against the champion Greg the Hammer Valentine. He was the Intercontinental Champion. So this is the first title match we have ever had in WrestleMania history. It's also the first time we've heard entrance music when Junkyard Dog came out. And he came out to some, soul music. And he had a huge...
Oh, the fans obviously loved Junkyard Dog.
This was definitely the biggest pop of the night so far. He was definitely a crowd favorite. He got in there, and he started doing his on all fours headbutts, and Greg the Hammer really sold those headbutts, made himself look really dizzy. But it was a very, very exciting match. The crowd was extremely into this one. Yeah. And so far, it's probably been the best match of the night. Now, Greg the Hammer actually pinned Junkyard Dog, but he had his legs on the rope.
Oh, we got our first instance of true cheating.
Yeah, so we've got our first little controversy ending here, where Greg the Hammer Valentine uses feet to leverage himself on the pin.
Leverage pin, yeah.
The referee counts 1, 2, 3, and then Tito Santana actually comes back out and lobbies and points out the cheating. So the referee decides to restart the match. But at this point, Greg the Hammer Valentine with the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
Yeah, we got to see the return of two people already that's already shown up in this WrestleMania. Jimmy Hart and Tito Santana. That's right.
So anyhow, Greg the Hammer wants to come back in and fight, but Jimmy Hart's pulling him back, saying it's not worth it. So they end up counting to the 10, and they disqualify Greg the Hammer. And anybody that watches wrestling knows title cannot be changed on a count out. So
yeah, Junkyard Dog won the match. It was a pretty good match, probably the best of the night so far. That's hard for me to say because Ricky the Dragon has wrestled, but that was a pretty slow match.
Right. But obviously this was definitely a crowd-pleasing match, not the finish the crowd wanted to see, obviously, because they were definitely in Junkyard Dog's corner. He was definitely an exciting figure in wrestling. During the match, he's barking at Greg the Hammer Valentine. He barked during the interview with Mean Gene Okerlund before the match. Very crowd pleaser. But anyhow, unfortunately, the match ends in count out. So we're going to move on now. Okay, 6th match of the night is our first tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championships.
Yes.
In this match, we have absolute legends in the ring. We've got the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov with their manager, Classy Freddie Blassie, and their opponents, the U.S. Express, which is Barry Windham and Mike Rotunda, with their manager, Lou Albano. Now, people will remember Barry Windham was a future Four Horsemen. Even got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame with the Four Horsemen. And Mike Rotunda, everybody would know better as Erwin R. Shyster, IRS, and he is the father of the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. So this is a pretty good match, pretty exciting tag team match. It goes back and forth. I think this was probably pushing the best match of the night, maybe second. I think the pop for Junkyard Dog, I think that might have been a little bit better. But this one also ends in heartbreak as there's some interference. Barry Windham gets hit in the back of the head with a cane, and the other team gets the win. 1, 2, 3. Referee doesn't see it. They don't correct it. And they announce the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov as the new tag team champions of the world. So what'd you think of this match, Blaze?
Well, so first off, one thing I noticed, this is our first match where both teams kind of got entrances. Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik sang their song that got resounding boos and people throwing things in the ring.
Well, this obviously is USA, right? USA, right?
Yeah, this is the start of the, well, probably not the start. This has probably been going on for a long time. Of if you're a foreigner, you're the enemy.
Yeah, you're the villain in wrestling in these days, and for many years to come. It's probably not until maybe 20, 30 years down the road before you can be the hero and still be a foreigner.
Yeah, unless you're from Canada. Canadians are all over the place in wrestling. Boo. Oh, Canada. Boo. But yeah, they were throwing stuff in the ring. They were not a fan of the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov. But, and then the other team also got a nice big entrance.
Yeah, they came out to some poppin' music. Looked like some kind of a patriotic type of theme.
Well, they had USA jackets on.
Right. They were
really playing the USA versus...
Yeah, even Barry Windham was wearing some cowboy boots, which that was kind of his signature throughout his career. He wore cowboy boots all the time. So
it's a pretty decent match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good back.
Our first tag team match, and then it's for the title.
And our first title change of WrestleMania.
That's correct.
That's because even though Junkyard Dog won the last match, he did not win the title due to countout.
So first title change was the WWF Tag Team Champions of the World.
So we are making WrestleMania history in the last two matches. First title match, first title change.
Literally everything on this WrestleMania is history. The first of everything, but sure.
No, but the reality is we can get first later down the road. A first ladder match, a first this, a first that. We will point out the first, even though this is the first WrestleMania. It will not be the last time or the last WrestleMania that we will hear of the first of. And we would love to point that out when we catch it.
Now, one thing I'd like to bring up is at the end of every show, we are going to tell you what we feel was the best match of the night from both of us, the worst match of the night, and not this show, but we are going to start ranking the WrestleManias as we go through them. So,
spoiler alert, this ranks number one at the end of this episode.
I don't know. For me, it's the worst.
It ranks number one.